please.
All right, well, I'm really glad for those that were able to come today. I was in Costa Rica for a good portion of the beginning of the year, and while I was down there, I decided to visit some friends of mine, which is Dr. Walter and his wife, Florence. His wife was the one who was in charge of our trip last year to Israel, so that's how I met Florence. And while I was down there, Dr. Walter said, well, why don't I do an analysis of you? And I said, all right, fine, whatever. And when he did the analysis, he was able to determine issues that I knew I had had for long term. Several years, they were chronic, and I wasn't able to get any real, I didn't bother to go for any medical attention, but some of it was pretty serious. I had a kidney and bladder infection, and I had also a really bad cough. I don't know how many of you remember, but I used to cough all the time. And people used to think I had something wrong, and I kept going to the doctor and kept checking my respiratory to see what was wrong, and no problem there, but I just kept coughing and I didn't know what was going on. So Dr. Walter, when he evaluated me, he was able to tell me that the cough was not respiratory, it was actually digestive. I had a virus. A specific virus was in my intestines, which was causing the coughing. So I started to use the sprays. He'll explain all that in a minute, but I started to use the sprays because I was also having an issue with continence, believe it or not, because of the bladder and kidney infection.
For how many years?
It's at least 3 or 4 years, at least. And I took his, whatever he told me to do, I obeyed him to the T for about, 5 or 6 days?
After a while, not at the beginning,
5 or
but
6 days. And the incontinence went away, my cough went away, just all kinds of things were happening that were all positive. And then right before I left to come home, because I was there at the very beginning of my trip, and I was there for 2 months. So before I left, I went back to see them again a week before I left Costa Rica. And he tested me, and the kidney infection and all that was gone. The virus in my digestive was gone. But then he said, wow, you are just loaded with mercury. He said, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't know, but, and so we started talking. He said, well, did you eat a lot of fish? And I'm like, well, I had fish. He goes, yeah, but it wouldn't account for the amount of mercury that's in your system. And then I thought about it, and before I had seen him, or when I first saw him to when I came back to see him, I had extensive mouth work done while I was down in Costa Rica, and I had 8 Novocaine needles, and they were loaded with mercury. And so when I said, oh, I had all this mouth work done, he's like, well, how many Novocaine needles did you have? And I said, 8 large needles, because of all the work they did in my mouth. And he's like, that's where the mercury's from. So then he had to treat me, obviously, for that, which is something that I want to say to all of you, that we encounter different things every day. Even if you get in if you've already signed up for an evaluation with Dr. Walter, understand that what he finds today, he can work with and help you get rid of. But just like, I don't know if you're familiar with chiropractic or other things, things come up in our lives where we might end up getting mercury in our mouth from having needles, or other things happen where you take a chemical that you didn't realize, or somebody had a virus in their food and they gave it to you. And so, it doesn't hurt to keep a maintenance program, is what I'm saying. You check in with them every so often and say, hey, how are things going? Am I still good? Just kind of keeping things in line so that you keep your body well. But anyway, I was so impressed with what he did with me that we were sitting around the table for lunch, and I said, I have so many friends back home that have major issues, major medical issues, that are in pain all the time, or, have chronic situations. And I said, I would give anything for you to be able to talk to them and to, offer something, here in the States. And so we negotiated, we talked about it, and he said, how about if I train you? I'll train you to make the treatments, and we'll work together and do consultations and so forth and so on. So I said, and then they found out, he and his wife found out they were coming up here for next week to go to a conference for Israel in New York City next week. And so I said, well, since you're coming here anyway, do you think you could come like a week early maybe, do a little presentation, and then maybe we could have some evaluations for some people? And he said he would do that, and I really appreciated it. So all the way from Costa Rica, this wonderful doctor, Dr. Walter, I hope you give him a really good welcome, and it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Doctor means healer. Medical doctor means somebody that studied in a medical school under the patronage of the pharmaceutical companies. So a nurse is a doctor. A healer from an Indian organization is a doctor. I'm a doctor. I'm a healer. Okay, I just don't use pharmaceuticals. Okay, and it's not that I don't recommend them. I mean, if I go for dental work, hey, shoot me. I mean, forget it. I mean, if I get a broken hand, forget it. You're gonna put those bones together. I mean, pass me out immediately. I mean, and then deal with it later. But those pharmaceuticals, day to day, is what you have to be careful with. Okay, and we have to choose. I'm going to teach you a way where you can choose better than worst. You can choose, if you have to take some pills, you can choose something that is not so offensive for you. We have the intrinsic ability to do that. We said in the beginning, before, that anything that is matter has energy, right? Therefore, you are full of energy. Every organ as an organ is vibrating at a specific frequency. I'll be explaining what a frequency is later on. And that you are composed of atoms, and the atoms are bound together, and they form different molecules and different types of tissues. In the area of hard tissues, I name 7 hard tissues, which is bone, cartilage, ligaments, muscle, skin, elastic tissue like your veins and your arteries, and I'm missing one. And tendons. I missed that one before. And tendons. Okay. Those hard tissues are formed by minerals, some protein, lots of minerals, and lots of fats. Omega 6, 9, 12, 3. And most of us, we don't eat enough. We don't process correctly those minerals in order to rebuild that tissue. So that's why it's so common for most people to have problems with arthritis, fibromyalgia, deterioration of tissue capacity in the body. So molecular energy is the ability of us to determine why we get sick, what made us sick, what our nutrition level is, and how we can balance all these things so we can get better. Okay? How many people have seen here or have had electrocardiogram done? Most of you. So let's say that the heart goes up like that, and then goes up like that, and again goes up like that, and goes up like that. That's the normal frequency of the heart, let's say. And let's say that it's working okay, beating at 70 cycles per minute or 80 cycles per minute. And let's say that then it's beating at 80. Okay? But maybe when you saw your electrocardiogram, it wasn't necessarily doing that, but sometimes all of a sudden it just went boop, click. It's going beep, 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 beep. Do you see that, any of you, in your heart? And sometimes would continue to do the green area, okay? And sometimes when we'd come down, would be a little skip. And then would continue beep again. Did anybody see that in your electrocardiogram? No? Or maybe they didn't show you the screen, which is usually what they do. They don't show you the screen, they tell you, oh, you're okay. So I'm sitting over there because the patient is not looking at the screen. I'm sitting over there with somebody, and I said to the doctor, why those skips? Oh, that's nothing, that's normal. That's what he said. He has no way how to fix that. In applied physics, we say that if we combine these two frequencies, then we're going to get, what do we get if we combine those two frequencies? Anybody here can tell me? The accountant? What do you get if you add 8 and 4? 12, and you divide it by 2? You get 6 as an average. So if we were to combine these two frequencies between here and here, this is not good. Between here and here, we will get a frequency to about here, right? That's applied math, that's applied physics. So, if any engineers here, any electronic engineers here, so if I ask an electronic engineer to reprogram that electrocardiogram machine, and I say, put a little button that says, normalize. Then that little button, what it would do, would play into the patient the frequency of 80 clicks per minute. Or if it was a woman, maybe 70 clicks per minute. And then what would happen with the two frequencies? It would get better from here to here. This is applied math. That would be possible. But they don't do it. They'll give you a chemical. They'll give you something to offset your blood pressure. Okay, so that's applied physics. That's a frequency. So there's a difference between a frequency. This height over here or here is called the amplitude. Okay? So I'm going to explain what the amplitude is. Let's say I get a balloon. And the balloon, I blow it up to this size. Okay? Now I'm going to expand the amplitude. How would I expand the amplitude? I put more air to double the size. What happens to the balloon? It pops. It pops. And guess what? By applied physics, we can do exactly that with pathogens. Virus, bacteria, parasites, funguses, and toxins. We can make them pop. Virus, bacteria, parasites, funguses, and toxins, they eat you up. They do what they're supposed to do. Once your immune system is low, okay, they go in and work before the worms come in. They're going to eat you up. So our immune system keeps them away from us. We have a defense mechanism. We have a shield, which is our immune system. So when you get contaminated by dirty water or whatever, then we get polluted and it starts to deteriorate our system. So we pop them at the micro level. And then your body excretes that and goes away.